Alright, what is up folks? So first of all, I want to issue an apology if the contrast for this video is quite poor, because the sun behind me is shining extremely bright. So it's a beautiful sunny day. I decided to come outside to record this video. Obviously, I've been talking a lot about the leftover woman crisis, right? The decline of couples having children, the decline of people looking to enter relationships. So let's also talk about, obviously, if there are a lot of leftover women, that means that there are way more leftover men versus the leftover women, because after all, China has way more man versus woman. Could be as many as 50 million. For the sake of this video, let's say there are 40 million excess men in China. So if there are, let's say, 100 million leftover women, that means that there are up to 140 million leftover men. So what is the mindset of these leftover Chinese men? What are they thinking about? One thing I have to tell you guys, that it's been 8 years since my return. Something that has really shocked me is that after I returned, I thought, I'd be pressured into entering a long-term relationship or entering a marriage, or at least getting engaged. I was fearing that my family members would try to set me up, but it has been a massive surprise for me that I will have to admit to you guys that the pressure to get married, to have children, or even entering a relationship is no longer there. I'm no longer feeling the pressure from my mom, my sister, my aunts and uncles, and so yeah, I think this is very common throughout China. There's no longer the pressure on the younger generation to get married, to have children. I think this is part of their what do you call it? This is a rebuke of their guilt, the guilt of the previous generation, because they know that they have completely messed everything up. I've said before, right? Virtually almost every single member of my family has been divorced. Many of them 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and they understand that they have completely destroyed the concept, the Chinese tradition of the nuclear family, and how important it is to every single civilization throughout history. And they have completely destroyed it. Marriage has been a joke to them now. It's a real legitimate concern, because, for example, in my grandmother's generation, right, I did mention everybody in that generation stayed married all the way until the end. It made sense way back in the day, right, for a bachelor or a young bachelorette to get engaged, to get married, to have children, because it was safe. You have a 100% chance of a successful marriage. But now, like, you flip a coin, it's 50-50. What's even worse than that, it's not even a 50-50 crisis, for example, right? So let's say the divorce rate is 50% overall, right? So half of the couples that end up staying married, how many are married on paper? How many are just, just because they can't afford to get a divorce, right? Because unless you can enter agreement, unless you have a contested divorce, which is 100% okay, you pay a tiny little bit of a legal fee, then you get separated. But in the cases of an uncontested divorce, usually it bankrupts both sides. When you have an uncontested divorce, you have to go through the court battles, you have to go through the custody battles, you have to hire lawyers. So that's what you're looking at, right? So I would say the remaining 50% of the marriages in China, or like probably half of them, right, they're just married on paper. Almost every single relationship is toxic. Almost every marriage is toxic. That's why so many men are trying to avoid it. That's why so many men are going their own way. And I've noticed it's very normal. Like, as I've visited many cities across China, so it's very normal to see a Chinese guy who is 25, 30, or even 35 or 40 that has never ever been in a serious relationship, because they simply don't want to enter it. And some of these guys, yes, they make a decent money. Some of these guys are tall and good looking, but they simply don't want to get married at all, and they want to avoid children at all costs, because yeah, men have everything to lose in a divorce. You had to really think about it. The fact is that roughly 80% of suicides worldwide are committed by men, and after a divorce it's usually 90%. Yes, after a divorce, 90% of suicides worldwide are committed by men. Unfortunately, this happened to my sister's second ex-husband. So the fear factor is real. The odds of you just ending up in a stable long-term marriage or relationship, you're looking at 1 in 4. You have a 25% chance of a successful marriage, and that's a brutal reality, right? Many of these people, they think, if they find an Asian woman, they're more feminine, they're more submissive, they're going to be good housewives to you, they're going to submit to you, they'll respect to you, and they'll raise children for you. I'm sorry to say, that's just not a reality, right? If you look at the white man, the Western man, sometimes black man or Latin man, they come to Asia, and if you look at the divorce rates between these passport bros, they get divorced all the time. Look at the divorce rates in Canada amongst the interracial couples. Look at the divorce rates in America, right, with white men and Asian women. It's around 50%. It is not any lower versus a white man versus white woman. It's all the same thing. This is a global crisis, and it's happening worldwide. Every part of the world you go to, like you're seeing this rampant divorce crisis, and you have to understand this is part of the reason why some some of these Chinese women who become leftover women, even though they're still very, very attractive, even in their 30s, right? They're still very feminine, and they can make money themselves. Some of them, they don't act like crazy Karens, they don't act like crazy bitches, but nobody ever chooses them. This is because there's the fear factor is real, and you have to remember that, right? I did mention, right, up until 20, 30, possibly 40 years ago, sending your children to school, right, obviously you had to pay the tuition. That was it. Like, everything used to be free. Now, in order for your kids to get them into a top tier school, you have to pay 100,000 yuan, 200,000, 300,000 yuan just to get into a middle school, then into high school, then into university. And afterwards, you have to set them up for a job. If you want them to become a civil servant or work in the railway industry, that's what, another 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. And if you want your son to get married, you gotta pay the dowry, right? And you gotta give your son an apartment. So all of these things, they just, everything costs us so much more money versus the previous generation, right? In my mom's generation, nobody had to pay anything, right? The Chinese dowry, that was always there. But what was the Chinese dowry? That used to be like, people used to buy what? Chopsticks. You got your girl maybe some nice jewelry, maybe you got her a nice TV, you got her a nice gift set, you got her some traditional Chinese clothing. That used to be the dowry. It never used to be a form of cash payment, right? You just got her a basket of goods. But the woman's demands for men has been higher than ever before, like 200,000 yuan, $28,000. That is a massive sum of money. But there's nothing you can do to change this trend. In a divorce, there's no fault, right? I can put all the money and effort, all the time into making this marriage and making this relationship work, right? But let's say if I have to go out on a business trip on a weekend, my wife can go to the bar and gets drunk and cheat on me with two black guys, right? And then she says, oh, she's not happy, she wants to file for divorce. There's no fault for divorce, and that's it. It's over. So unless there's going to be drastic changes to the family laws, so I don't think this trend is going to be reversed anytime soon. So this is what you're looking at, right? If you're trying to understand the mindset of a leftover Chinese man, right? It is the previous generation. They have completely destroyed the concept of the nuclear family. It's also extremely important to mention that, so much has changed from the previous generation. Nowadays, in 2025 in China, if you're looking for a date, right? Let's say if you've been with a Chinese girl, you've been together for at least 3 months. So many Chinese women, they think that now it's okay for them to give up the cookie. However, in exchange for the Chinese man to get the Chinese girl's cookie after 3 months, she says that now, we've been together for 3 months, right? Now we're serious, right? Now this is going somewhere. So I expect you to take care of me 100% financially. You must pay all of my bills, right? If I want to go to the nail salon, you gotta pay the bill. If I want to get a massage, you gotta pay for it. If I want to do some online shopping, you gotta pay for everything. You gotta pay for my gym membership. You have to make the monthly car payment for my car. You gotta pay for my perfume. You gotta pay for my handbag. You gotta take me shopping. You have to pay 100% for everything. I believe in the West, what do they call this? Oh yeah, it's called the sprinkle, right? And that is the brutal, honest reality, I would say, facing 80 to 90% of modern Chinese men. You have to basically sell your liver and sell your own blood in order for you to be able to afford a girlfriend. No, I'm being 100% honest. Only the richest Chinese guys can afford a girlfriend and a wife nowadays. Everything has become so materialistic, right? Marriage and relationship has become 100% transactional. It is a financial transaction from the man to the woman. And honestly, there's not much more to it. There's no true love. True love is honestly dead in 2025. That's why so many relationships are so toxic. That's why there are so many divorces. And yes, I've mentioned this before, right? Throughout history, in every single civilization, throughout the history of mankind, right? Every single generation has to surpass the previous. Humans throughout history, we have been getting faster, we have been getting stronger, and we have grown a lot smarter over the years. However, look at what has happened to this generation, to the millennials and the Gen Z. We're getting dumber and dumber. We're seeing this trend worldwide, where the IQs of the children of the next generation, they're consistently dropping. Yes, humans are living longer. Yes, living conditions have proved to be better than ever before. However, we have created the sickest generation in history, and it's very evident when I see the children's hospital here is constantly filled with sick kids. We have created some of the most dysfunctional families families throughout history, right? For the longest time, divorce was never ever a thing, but now it's happening worldwide. For the longest time, being raised by a single mother was never ever a thing, but look at what's happening. For the longest time throughout history, in every single civilization, female sexual promiscuity was never ever a thing. It was never ever permitted. Now I would say in half of the civilizations worldwide, women are entering their first marriages with insane body counts. I'm talking about 10, 15, 20, 30, even 50, right? What kind of chances of a successful marriage do you think you'll have if you have already given your cookie to 50 different guys, right? And this is going to be a massive crisis. I'm not just talking about the decline of birth rates and the population collapse. So what I'm talking about is that as the demands from modern women, they keep getting higher and higher and higher from men, and also as the divorce rates keep on rising and rising, what you will ultimately end up seeing is that there's going to be less family formation, there's going to be less marriages, and there's going to be less relationships. And when you have a record number of single men, let's say in a country like China, we'll just say that there are 140 million, right, leftover single bachelor men who are just basically either they're men going their own way, or they have no chance of ever finding a girlfriend or a wife. So these men, what's going to happen? They're going to either become extremely violent, they're going to become extremely resentful, and they will think that, oh my god, so this is the reason why I cannot find a girlfriend, this is the reason why I cannot find a wife. It's because the modern woman, they're the problem. We need to hate women. We need to walk down the street and just punch these women in the face. We need to brutally kill women. We need to rape women. We need to torture women. So this is ultimately where you will end up seeing. You'll end up with extremely depressed, single, lonely women on one side, and on the other side, you will see extremely depressed, lonely men, and you will see extremely violent, rageful, hateful men. And ultimately, that is going to be the end game of all of this, and everybody on both sides is going to suffer, right? Unfortunately, I think for the next generation, I think we're all just born the wrong generation. So nothing good ever goes up forever. At some point, the trend has to peak and has to go on a decline. I think for this generation, everything is on the decline. Inflation, cost of living, finding a job, everything's becoming extremely difficult. I think we're all going to end up like that movie, Blade Runner, where at the end of the day, we're all going to end up alone. So that is the end game of all of this. And I'm sorry to say, I really don't think that there's a solution for this, at least not in the short term. You will see more and more people that's avoiding marriages, they're avoiding children, they're avoiding relationships. Things are definitely not looking bright for the future.